A warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. I am R.S. Raghu, and with me is Ashish P. Abraham, bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring to you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment and more. The headlines. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurates 8th edition of Riyas Dialogue in New Delhi. G20 foreign ministers call for strong international cooperation in the field of climate change, counter-terrorism and narcotics control. Quad foreign ministers to meet in New Delhi on Friday. Meeting to be chaired by India's Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar. Protests erupt in Greece following deadly train collision. Vietnam Parliament elects Vo Van Thuong as country's new president. And in cricket, India all out for 163 in their second innings of third test against Australia at Indore. Australia need 76 runs to win the match. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurated the 8th edition of the Riyas Dialogue in New Delhi on Thursday. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni is the chief guest of the three-day dialogue. Speaking on the occasion, the Italian Prime Minister said India's leadership in G20 and the Riyas Dialogue together can send a message of cooperation and peace to the world. She said global coordination on climate change should not be a zero-sum game, and Indo-Pacific countries led by India have a strong role to play in this regard.
The need to accelerate the energy transition has been compounded by the energy crisis, which has highlighted the vulnerability of economies across the world. It has, however, also shown that global coordination on climate change is not a zero-sum game, but a true shared interest. The same is true for technological development and dissemination, where Indian countries throughout the Indo-Pacific have a central role to play, given their highly skilled workforce, their resources, and their strategic position along the global value chains.
Ms. Meloni noted that India is a key player in the Indo-Pacific and Italy is a key stakeholder in the Mediterranean. She stated that what happens in the Indo-Pacific has direct consequences for Europe. She highlighted that Mr. Modi and she have announced the scaling up of the India-Italy bilateral relationship to a strategic partnership. She stressed that terrorism is a concern that needs to be faced by a wide coalition of international countries.
Prime Minister Modi and I have just announced the scaling up of our bilateral relations to a strategic partnership. Building on bilateral tools and broader programs such as the EU Global Gateway, Europe and the Indo-Pacific, but also Latin America and the African continent are enhancing their collaboration on all fronts, from connectivity to infrastructure and fair and sustainable trade, while keeping in mind the strategic priority for all of us.
Riyas Dialogue is India's flagship conference on geopolitics and geostrategy. The theme of the 2023 edition is Provocation, Uncertainty, Turbulence, Lighthouse in the Tempest. The G20 foreign ministers meet held in New Delhi on Thursday deliberated upon current global challenges including climate change, food and energy insecurity and global supply chain disruptions. The chair's summary and outcome document of the meeting said that the foreign ministers brought focus on issues like strengthening multilateralism, ambitious climate and environmental action, deepening cooperation on sustainable development, counter-terrorism and disaster risk reduction. It said that the war in Ukraine has further adversely impacted the global economy and there was a discussion on the issue. The foreign ministers said it is essential to uphold international law and the multilateral system that safeguards peace and stability. The outcome document said the threat of the use of nuclear weapons is inadmissible and peaceful resolution of conflicts is vital. It stressed that a more inclusive and reinvigorated multilateralism and reform aimed at implementing the 2030 agenda is essential. Briefing media in New Delhi on Thursday, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar said the foreign ministers reaffirmed the steadfast commitments of G20 leaders to tackle climate change by strengthening the full and effective implementation of the Paris Agreement.
The foreign ministers addressed climate action in the context of common but differentiated responsibilities and urged developed countries to fulfill their commitments to deliver on the goal of jointly mobilizing $100 billion per year urgently and through to 2025 to tackle climate change.
G20 foreign ministers for the first time discussed the topic of counter-narcotics and called for inclusive and strong international cooperation in this regard. Dr. S. Jaishankar said the foreign ministers condemned all forms of terrorism.
Condemned terrorism in all forms and manifestations and recognized that all acts of terrorism are criminal and unjustifiable. They called for strengthening of efforts to deny safe havens to terrorist groups, freedom of operations, movement and recruitment, as well as financial, material or political support.
In today's Hotspot section, we bring you a news commentary. G20 foreign ministers meet amidst grave global scenario.
The G20 foreign ministers meeting is being held in New Delhi on the 1st and 2nd of March under India's presidency. Foreign ministers of member nations of the G20 are attending the meeting. According to India's External Affairs Ministry, foreign ministers of G20 nations like Brazil, Turkey, Mauritius and Australia are in New Delhi for the meeting. The US Secretary of State Antony Blinken, UK Foreign Secretary James Cleverly and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov are also taking part in the meeting. India invited representatives of 40 countries, including non-G20 members. A meeting of foreign ministers of the Quad countries, the United States, India, Australia and Japan would also be held on the sidelines of the G20 foreign ministers meeting. The External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar and several dignitaries shared their perspectives on the emerging global challenges and international matters. A dinner was hosted for the foreign ministers and delegation heads. Sessions covering various subjects including strengthening multilateralism and need for reforms, food and energy security, development cooperation would be held on Thursday. The meeting would be discussing counter-terrorism, new and emerging threats, global skill mapping and talent pool, and humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. The G20 foreign ministers reaffirmed their trust on India's presidency of G20 and said they would work towards a statement that reflects the current extraordinary circumstances. The meeting of the G20 foreign ministers coming close on the heels of the group's meeting of finance ministers and central bank governors signifies the rise of India's diplomacy. Many prestigious events have taken place since India took over the presidency of G20 from Indonesia on the 1st of December 2022. The G20 is the group of the world's top 20 industrialized nations, accounting for 85% of the global gross domestic product (GDP). The theme of India's G20 presidency is One Earth, One Family, One Future. It is based on Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, drawn from the ancient Sanskrit text of the Maha-Upanishad. Essentially, the theme affirms the value of all life, human, animal, plant and microorganisms, and their interconnectedness on the planet Earth and in the wider universe. The theme also spotlights lifestyle for environment, with its associated environmentally sustainable and responsible choices, both at the level of individual lifestyles as well as national development, leading to globally transformative actions resulting in a cleaner, greener and bluer future. For India, the G20 presidency also marks the beginning of Amrit Kal, the 25-year period beginning from the 75th anniversary of its independence on the 15th of August 2022, leading up to the centenary of its independence towards a futuristic, prosperous, inclusive and developed society distinguished by a human-centric approach at its core. Prime Minister Modi has said that India's G20 presidency has come at a time when the world is gripped by crisis and chaos. The world is going through the after-effects of a disruptive, once-in-a-century pandemic, conflicts and a lot of economic uncertainty. The symbol of the lotus in the G20 logo represents hope in these times. No matter how adverse the circumstances, the lotus will still bloom. Even if the world is in a deep crisis, we can still progress and make it a better place. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar said India would like to use its G20 presidency to reflect the interests and concerns of the Global South that have been sidelined over the years. He said technology should be given substantial weight in deciding India's geopolitical positioning, as it would play a key role in striking alliances in a multipolar world. Dr. Jaishankar said the rise of India is deeply linked with the advancement of India's technology, and it has acquired strong political connotation. India has shown how to use technology for providing accessibility of services to the common people. India's free food grain scheme being provided to 800 million people, direct benefit transfers through the medium of Jan Dhan account, Aadhaar Mobile Jam Trinity system to 450 million people have become case studies in the developed world.
Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni called on India's President Draupadi Murmu at Rashtrapati Bhavan on Thursday. Welcoming the Italian Prime Minister on her first visit to India, the President said that she was happy to see a young and confident woman leading Italy. She noted that Ms. Meloni is not only the first woman Prime Minister of Italy, but also the youngest ever Prime Minister of a country. The President said that India and Italy enjoy excellent friendly relations. As modern and mature democracies, India and Italy are committed to achieving economic growth based on rule of law, respect for human rights, and inclusive development. She expressed confidence that this visit would re-energize India-Italy bilateral relations. The President said that under India's presidency of the G20 and Italy's upcoming presidency of the G7, there is potential for India and Italy to work together in areas of mutual interest, such as healthcare, climate change, and digital technology.
U.S. State Secretary Antony Blinken on Thursday spoke briefly with his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov on the sidelines of the meeting of foreign ministers of the G20 nations in New Delhi. The meeting was the first face-to-face meeting between the two foreign ministers since the conflict between Russia and Ukraine began over a year ago. During the less than 10-minute exchange, Blinken urged Russia to reverse its decision to suspend cooperation in the new START nuclear arms treaty and accept a U.S. proposal for the release of U.S. citizen Paul Whelan. While addressing a press conference in New Delhi on Thursday, Lavrov said it is high time to reform the UN Security Council. He said Russia does not feel isolated. The West is isolating itself now, he added. He further said that the West refused to include Russia's proposal on the need for an investigation of Nord Stream blasts in the G20 final declaration. Quad foreign ministers will be hosted by India in New Delhi on Friday. The meeting will be chaired by External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar. It will see the participation of foreign ministers of Australia and Japan and the Secretary of State of the US. The meeting will be an opportunity for the ministers to continue their discussions held at their last meeting in New York in September last year. The External Affairs Ministry said that they will exchange views on recent developments in the Indo-Pacific region and regional issues of mutual interest, guided by their vision of a free, open and inclusive Indo-Pacific. The ministers will also review progress made by the Quad in pursuit of its constructive agenda and implementation of initiatives aimed at addressing contemporary priorities of the region.
In Jharkhand, the Research and Innovation Initiative Gathering, Conference on Materials for Sustainable Energy, was held under India's G20 presidency in Ranchi on Thursday. The conference is coordinated by the Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, CSIR, New Delhi. Dr. Srivari Chandrasekhar, Secretary, Department of Science and Technology, said that many G20 nations, including India, have enormous minerals and materials wealth that is required to be sustainably used for meeting our energy requirements. The G20 delegates from Indonesia and Brazil also reiterated the importance of the conference. 21 foreign delegates from 16 G20 members, invited guest countries and international organizations, and 40 Indian experts participated in the conference. Dr. N. Kalai Selvi, DG CSIR, said that the theme of the G20 under India's presidency highlights the need for the entire world to come together and focus on sustainable energy to achieve a global future with net zero emissions. She called upon the G20 nations to join hands to research and develop technological solutions in the areas of sustainable energy storage, distribution and management. India and Austria on Thursday held discussions on strengthening their continued partnership and developmental cooperation for bringing innovations in the road transport sector in New Delhi. Road Transport and Highways Minister Nitin Gadkari and Austrian Ambassador to India, Katharina Wieser, exchanged their views on the latest technologies and innovations in road infrastructure development and green technologies. Appreciating the quality of ropeways and cable car components manufactured in Austria, Mr. Gadkari emphasized collaboration in technology transfer and manufacturing the same in India to reduce overall costs. During the meeting, deliberations also took place on other potential areas of collaboration, including new technologies in highway construction, electronic toll systems, intelligent transportation systems, traffic management systems, and road safety.
Demonstrators poured into the streets of Greece after a head-on collision between two trains amid anger over the country's weak record on railway safety. Protesters clashed with police in the Greek capital Athens after a passenger train carrying more than 350 people collided with a freight train on Tuesday evening in Tempe, leaving at least 46 people dead and scores injured. According to a 2022 report from the European Union Agency for Railways, Greece has a weak record of railway passenger safety compared with other countries in Europe. It has the highest railway fatality rate per million train kilometers from 2018 to 2020 among 28 nations on the continent. In an extraordinary meeting, the Greek Federation of Rail Workers decided unanimously to launch the 24-hour strike on Thursday to highlight poor working conditions and chronic understaffing. Greek Transport Minister Kostas Karamanlis said that the railway system the government inherited was not up to 21st century standards as he stepped down from his role on Wednesday. In a televised address after visiting the crash site, Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis said the collision was mainly due to the tragic human error. He said the Transport Minister's decision to resign was honourable and added that the heads of Hellenic Railways organization and its subsidiary Ergos have also submitted their resignations. Condolences poured in from across the world while a 3-day period of mourning is underway in Greece. Vietnam's National Assembly on Thursday elected Vo Van Thuong as the country's new president in a reshuffle of the country's top leadership amid an anti-graft campaign. In an extraordinary session, lawmakers confirmed Thuong after the ruling Communist Party nominated him on Wednesday as president. Thuong's election follows the sudden resignation of his predecessor Nguyen Huan Phuc in January, who the party blamed for wrongdoing. In his first speech to Parliament as the new president, Thuong said that he would resolutely continue the fight against corruption. Thuong is the youngest member of the party's Politburo, the country's top decision-making body.
India's Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla has said that increasing women participation in every sector is a reflection of New India. He said responsibilities lies with the youth for bringing transformative changes in the country. He was addressing the participants of the National Youth Parliament Festival 2023 in Parliament Central Hall on Thursday. Highlighting the role of the youth in the socio-economic transformation, Mr. Birla said, the country's youth are playing a vital role in bringing transformative changes in the country and at the global stage. On this occasion, India's Youth Affairs and Sports Minister Anurag Singh Thakur said the country's women are scaling new heights in every sector. He said, in the Khelo India Youth Games, out of 25 national records, 19 were broken by the girls. He said the country has also broken several records in various aspects. Mr. Thakur said, in 2014, the country was in the league of fragile 5 economies of the world, and now the country has made a place in the top 5 economies of the world. The International Financial Rating Agency Moodys, in its latest Investor Services report, downgraded the outlook for the Bangladesh banking sector to negative. Bangladesh, along with Australia, Korea, New Zealand and Pakistan, will have a worsening state of banking operations, stated Moody's report. The downgrade could make credit and foreign currency costlier to businesses and banks operating in Bangladesh. Moodys said in its report that the outlook changed to negative as asset risks increased and the liquidity situation tightened in the country. Earlier, in December last year, Moodys downgraded the rating of the Social Islami Bank of Bangladesh and put up the ratings of 7 other banks under review for downgrade. Financial sector experts have expressed concern over the downgrade of the banking sector. Bangladesh Bank's former governor, Salahuddin Ahmed, pointed out that the downgrade is for the entire banking sector, which is a matter of concern.
Foreign Minister of Bangladesh, A.K. Abdul Momen, has said that countries of the South Asian region should tap the potential of mutual complementaries to realize the thriving possibilities of cooperation with each other. Delivering his address at the Vivekananda International Foundation in Delhi on Wednesday, Dr. Momen urged the countries of the region to enhance cooperation by setting up regional power and energy grids, ensuring equitable markets access, quick transfer and assimilation of technology and employment of professionals in regional economies. Dr. A.K. Abdul Momen is in Delhi participating in the G20 Foreign Ministers meeting. Bangladesh is one of the 7 guest countries invited to take part in its deliberations during the presidency of India. Highlighting the fact that the South Asian region has one of the lowest levels of inter-regional trade in the world, Dr. Momen said that no country should abruptly impose tariff and non-tariff barriers to offset the prospects of trade. He also called upon countries of the region to allow free flow of investment as investment and trade go hand in hand. He further said removal of barriers on investment will promote economic prosperity for all. Dr. Momen stressed upon the growing friendship between Bangladesh and India over the last few years. Speaking about high-level visits between the two countries, he said that during the visit of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina to India last year, both countries signed several MOUs and inaugurated projects like the water-sharing agreement on Kushiara River, opening of the first unit of the Maitri Super Thermal Power Plant at Rampal, railway bridge on Rupsha River, and scholarships handed over to the family members of Indian forces who lost their lives during the liberation war of Bangladesh. Reiterating Bangladesh policy of zero tolerance towards terrorism and violent extremism, Dr. Momen said that his country will never allow its soil to be used for such activities. This is All India Radio giving you the world news.
India's Supreme Court set up an expert committee on Thursday on the issue arising from the Hindenburg research report on Adani Group companies. The committee will consist of 6 members headed by former Apex Court Judge Justice A.M. Sapre. The Supreme Court said the committee shall submit its report in a sealed cover before the court in 2 months. The Apex Court directed the market regulator SEBI to ensure that all information is provided to the committee. The Supreme Court also directed the SEBI to investigate whether there has been a violation of Section 19 of SEBI rules and whether there was any manipulation of stock prices. President of the United Arab Emirates Gender Balance Council, Sheikha Manal bin Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, commended the UAE's success in providing women with equal opportunities. She also emphasized that the UAE's progress in women's empowerment aligns with the leadership's vision of making the UAE the best nation in the world by 2070. As per the annual World Bank report, the UAE scored 82.5 out of 100 possible points across 35 sub-indicators divided into 8 major areas that include mobility, workplace, pay, marriage, parenthood, entrepreneurship, assets and pension. The UAE GBC has worked with various federal entities to introduce and reform over 20 laws concerning employee benefits, equal access to credit, political participation, personal status, the judiciary, wages, freedom of movement, marriage, entrepreneurship, assets and pensions. These reforms are aimed at increasing women's economic participation and protecting their rights.
The leaders of China and Belarus have expressed their interest in a peaceful resolution in Ukraine. Chinese President Xi Jinping and Belarus leader Alexander Lukashenko issued a statement after talks in Beijing. Mr. Lukashenko said his country fully supports Beijing's plan for ending the war in Ukraine. China announced a plan for peace talks last week, calling for the respect of national sovereignty. The visit also comes days after China sent its top diplomat Wang Yi to meet Mr. Putin. The 12-point document urges respect for the sovereignty of all countries. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said he agreed with some parts of it and said it was a sign of China's willingness to engage. Beijing has so far not publicly responded to Mr. Zelensky's call for a summit. In cricket, India were all out for 163 in their second innings against Australia at the end of Day 2 of the third test of the Border Gavaskar Trophy at Indore. They took a lead of 75 runs. Cheteshwar Pujara scored the highest 59 runs. For the visitors, Nathan Lyon scalped 8 wickets. Australia needs 76 runs to win the match. Earlier, Australia were all out for 197 runs. Khwaja contributed most of the 60 runs for the hosts. Ravindra Jadeja took 4 wickets while R. Ashwin and Umesh Yadav took 3 wickets. India were all out for 109 runs in their first innings yesterday. India have retained the trophy, winning the first 2 tests of the 4-match series.
Domestic share markets on Thursday closed with losses of more than 0.5%. The index of the top 30 companies on the Bombay Stock Exchange, the Sensex, ended below the 59,000 mark. The Nifty, which is the index of the top 50 companies on the National Stock Exchange, settled below the 17,350 level. Both stocks fell amid negative cues from global share markets. A report from the business desk.
The Sensex declined 502 points or 0.84% to end at 58,909. The Nifty fell 129 points or 0.74% to close at 17,322. Global stock markets declined amid pullback in Chinese stocks and higher US bond yields. The fall was also attributed to the latest inflation indicators in the United States and Europe, suggesting the possibility of a prolonged high interest rate regime. In the Asian markets, most shares ended in negative territory. Hong Kong's Hang Seng fell 0.9%, while Singapore's Straits Times Index slipped 0.6%. Japan's Nikkei 225 and China's Shanghai Composite declined 0.1% each. However, South Korea's Kospi gained 0.6%. European shares dipped over decline in rate-sensitive technology stocks ahead of a key inflation reading. Oil prices rose amid optimism over a revival in Chinese demand, even as concerns linger about inflation in the US and Europe. In intraday trade, Brent crude was trading at around $85 per barrel. Back home at the Multi-Commodity Exchange, gold futures for April was trading at 55,840 rupees per 10 grams. Silver futures for March was trading at 63,455 rupees per kilogram when reports last came in. S. Rangabashyam for World News.
The Finnish Parliament on Wednesday approved legislation allowing the country to join the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO. 184 members of Parliament voted in favour, with 7 against and 1 abstention. Finnish President Sauli Niinisto will sign the legislation as soon as possible. In May 2022, the Finnish Parliament accepted an application to join NATO with a majority of 188 to 8. So far, 28 NATO member countries have ratified Finnish membership, with Turkey and Hungary still pending. The Finnish Parliament wanted to finalize the domestic vote before the upcoming parliamentary elections. Now let us take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press. The Straits Times reports China to reshuffle cabinet at upcoming annual parliament session, restructure party and state organs. The Globe and Mail reports indigenous community accuses Imperial Oil, Alberta government of covering up industrial leaks. The Washington Post writes, in Greece, deep problems with rail network preceded deadly collision. The Japan Times reports, after years of sluggish growth, wage hikes finally gaining steam in Japan. The New York Times writes, Finland on cusp of joining NATO, but maybe not with Sweden.
And now a quick look at the headlines once again. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurates 8th edition of Riyas Dialogue in New Delhi. G20 foreign ministers call for strong international cooperation in the field of climate change, counter-terrorism and narcotics control. Quad foreign ministers to meet in New Delhi on Friday, meeting to be chaired by India's Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar. Protests erupt in Greece following deadly train collision. Vietnam Parliament elects Vo Van Thuong as country's new president. And in cricket, India all out for 163 in their second innings of third test against Australia at Indore. Australia need 76 runs to win the match.